Hi, everybody. I'm going to make this video as quick as possible. Um, that way you're not sitting here watching a bunch of stuff unnecessarily. All right. So I'm not going to do discussion after thinking about it. I don't think it's meaningful, because I think discussion is largely in there to try to get us started and things like that. And without me being present, I don't think it's necessary. So and we're not going to have a discussion for Monday and Tuesday. You will have to respond in discussion in some way on Wednesday, but that's your asynchronous work for Wednesday. So that will be there. But for today, the only thing that we're going to be doing is you're going to be working, like I said, on that summative. So let me share my screen and show you. All right, here we go. All right, I'm hoping you're seeing my screen now. There we go. All right, so what you have in front of you is the assignment that you're going to be looking at today. This is just where we're going to compile all of our summative stuff. All right. For directions to this, I haven't set them up yet, but they will be in Schoology. I'll tell you what I want you to do, but I'm going to walk you through it for this. Okay. That's the wrong one. All right. So as you can see, let me zoom in a little bit. As you can see, there are a bunch of different things here where you're going to put information. The top one, you're not putting any information there. This is just the prompt. It says, what strategies have people taken throughout history in their struggle toward the democratic ideals of the United States? That should seem fairly familiar to you. That's the essential question that has been on every PowerPoint that we've had this quarter. So if you have no idea what that means, shame on you. No, I'm joking. But I'm going to walk you through what I mean by this, okay, real quick. So what are people doing is essentially what this is asking. What are people doing throughout history? And we've been looking specifically at that time since the founding of this country, or not the founding of this country, the arrival of people in this country other than natives in the early 1600s. We've been looking at that time and how people struggled, and then how they tried to gain their freedom. And that's what we're looking at. We're saying, what did people do throughout history, throughout that time in US history, to get their freedom? And why was it so hard to get your freedom? Because of these oppressive people that are put in place. So you're looking at two things. You're looking at the resistance necessary to oppose oppression. And then you're looking at the resilience necessary to oppose it as well. That's what the struggle is. And democratic ideals just means like freedom. Okay, so what are people doing? How are they struggling to gain their freedom? How are they struggling to gain their freedom is essentially what we're asking in the United States. So, and then below that, you'll see that in this blue box, it says introduction paragraph. Include a personal anecdote. This is what we're going to work on today. This is essentially your assignment for today. We're going to do, and then you're also going to do this, but this, if you've been keeping up with your work, it should be fairly simple. So body paragraph 1, like it says here, comes from your 211 resilience and resistance assignment. If I go back there and I pull it up here, I don't actually have it written, but you should have something written here. So you would just pull what you wrote here. If it's not good, you might have to do a little bit of work, because as you should know, right, this is going to be a larger paper, a larger writing assignment. So you need to make sure that it all makes sense. If you have like a sentence there, you're going to have to do a little bit more, right? You have to do 4 to 5 sentences for this, okay? So that's where that first paragraph comes from. Paragraph 2, from 311, resilience and revolution. Copy and paste your paragraph in the writing box. paragraph writing in this box. That's from 311. So again, all I would do is I would go back there, and I actually wrote some of this one, I know. I'd go back there. It's not all together. It should look something like all of that should be together. And these are just examples. So if you're like pausing the video to copy this, feel free. Guess what? I shared this with everybody. So feel free to do that. I might not have shared it with everybody. I can't remember back to it. But then I would just take that and put it in there. It should be in the form of a paragraph. All of these different sentences, as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sentences, 3 sentence starters, right? According to the American Battlefield Trust, according to the biography video, according to Radner. And then you would put all of that information in there. You would finish up those sentences. And then I have a conclusion sentence right there. Even though the colonists struggled in all these ways, they were able to succeed and win the American Revolution. Ties it back to my prompt, right? They were struggling. There's struggle. There's the word struggle. And they were able to succeed and win the American Revolution. Democratic ideals. Ties it directly to it. All right. And then the last one here, body paragraph 3 from 4.1. That was just last week. You go there. Look at this. As we learned in class, according to blah, blah, blah. And do the same exact thing. Copy, paste it, and put it in there. Okay. And this one only has 4 sentences here because I didn't want to write. I think with one class I actually did write the conclusion conclusion sentence, but same idea here, right? You have an opening sentence, 3 pieces of evidence, and a closing sentence. All right. So you should have three pieces of writing there that you've already done. All right. Then there's a conclusion paragraph, as it says right there, for Thursday, Friday, and then we're putting it all together, Thursday and Friday. This does not mean that this is where we're going to submit it. We'll talk about that on Thursday and Friday when I see you in class. Okay. So what you're doing today is you're copying and pasting those 3 paragraphs into here, maybe adjusting a little bit, right? Maybe adjusting it to make it look nice, make it look like it flows easily, make it look like a paragraph, right? So this does not look like a paragraph. This looks like a bunch of writing. I would obviously put all of my sentences together like this, right? And if you go ahead and copy this, as you can see these little dots here, that's where you're supposed to include some information or research that you did on your own. So if you're like, oh, I'm just going to copy Mr. Ritchie's, this is not a full paragraph. All right. So you can go ahead and do that, but it's not gonna get you a good grade. All right. So that's what I want it to look like this. I don't want it to look like a bunch of sentences separated, okay? Because then on Thursday, Friday, as you could see down here, when we put it all together, we're going to put it into 5 paragraphs. All right. I was going to say any questions about that, but obviously can't have any. All right. So that's what you should have all of this work done. If you haven't done this, you have a lot of work to do, right? You have a lot of work to do. You need to go in and write these. And for each one of these assignments, the prompt should be self-explanatory. So if I go back to 211 real quick, it says, how is the journey of the runners an example of resilience? Use evidence from the map, website, or other source to support your answer. All right. Where are you getting your evidence for this one? You got to go into the content library, right? And we worked with this Pueblo map here. And what we did is we calculated how far the distance was for each one of these, right? We looked at the distance and how far these runners were traveling to get the word out, to revolt. And then I also included a source that shows you the landscape of New Mexico, of that New Mexico region where these runners were traveling. So with those 2 things combined, you can pull lines from this article and say, according to this article, this was a dangerous area because of these things, right? You could talk about the distance, right? The distance between Taos and Sinaku, how far that is, and that they're running. All right, you could talk about all kinds of stuff like that. All right, there's also a for this one, there's also a PowerPoint attached to it. You have to go back into Schoology to look at that. All right, for the 311 one right here, right? I gave you 3 specific sources to look at for evidence for this one. And I'm sorry for those of you that have already done this. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So for that one, for the revolution one, let's look. Where is it? I believe this is it right here. Yeah. So you have this video about George Washington, and we pulled lines from that video about how he struggled in his life. Then there's this short reading about Valley Forge, and it was a struggle. And guess what? The one before that were Revolutionary War battles. This is about some of the battles during the American Revolution. Some of it was a struggle. So we used those 3 things. We used that video, we used this short reading, and we used these cards here, these clues, as evidence for that second paragraph writing, the 311 one. And then for the last one, the 4-1, you could have used anything. Like I said on last week, you could use this, the I Freed Myself by David Williams. You could use the slavery quotes that we looked at. You could use the Nat Turner's Rebellion stuff that we looked at a couple weeks ago. You could use the Underground Railroad. You can use any of it. There's a lot of struggling taking place here, and they're all working towards freedom. So grab the evidence, create those paragraphs if you have not yet. I don't want to spend too much time on it because that's what we did in class. And those of you that have not written it, you know, I mean, I tried to walk you through it. So that's where all these 3 green paragraphs are coming from. This is work you've already done. So if you're looking at this and you're like, hey, this is a lot of work, it shouldn't be. So now we're getting to what we're going to do today. We're going to write this introduction paragraph. And as it says there, it says include a personal anecdote. What that means is I want you to include a personal story that ties into this in a way, right? Ties into the idea of struggling and when you're doing something. And that's how we're going to open up our introductory paragraph. Usually when you start a topic, you want to draw the reader in some way. All right. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. And this is going to be my personal story. So obviously you can't do it. You can't use it. All right. So we're going to open it though. The first line is going to be something about connecting it to the prompt. So the prompt here says, what strategies have people taken throughout the history and the struggle towards the democratic idea? So our opening sentence could be something like this. When trying to resist, or no, because we don't want to connect. We don't want to connect it yet. So when trying to achieve something, trying to think of how I had this in mind and now I can't think of it. I will just jump into it. I'm just going to jump into my personal story. All right. And then, okay. So for the personal story, that's what I want you to start it off with. All right. And I was thinking that you could start it off with maybe a line before that, but now I'm thinking that maybe that's not as good of an idea. I'm just going to do the personal anecdote. So I'm going to talk about some way that I survived through hardships and was able to do something even though I struggled, achieve something even though I struggled, which connects in a way to this idea here, right? I'm not talking about gaining my freedom, but I am talking about the struggle, okay? And guess what? If you've been following along and doing your work, we've done this as well. You can go back up to Unit 3 vocab, and you can grab this part right here. You're going to have to change some of it, all right? But here is the story that I shared about the resilience that was necessary for me to complete a marathon. So I'm just going to grab that, and then I'm going to change some of it after I put it in there. All right. So there, I have my little sentence or my paragraph starter that I want to use here. It says, I showed resilience in my life last year when I injured my IT band while running. I went to the doctor and she said, I would be fine if I continued to run, but it would be very painful. I took her advice and kept running, completing the marathon. All right, so I can say last year. I don't want to start it with resilience because I don't want the reader to be like, why are they just jumping into what resilience is? So last year, I injured my IT band while running. I went to the doctor and she said I would be fine if I continued to run, but it would be very painful. I'm going to take out the exclamation points. I took her advice and kept training, completing the marathon, completing a marathon later that year. All right. So now I have a little short story, a short anecdote about resilience in my life. Okay. And you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with history and the democratic ideals? Now I'm going to connect it. So this is kind of like an opener. All right. So last year I injured my IT band while running. I went to the doctor. She said I would be fine if I continued to run, but it would be very painful. I took her advice and kept training, completing a marathon later that year. The resilience necessary to achieve things when faced with hardships. When faced with hardships can be seen throughout U.S. history as well. All right, look, now, you see, now I'm connecting it. You can see how I'm connecting it. All right. So I gave my short story, then I have this sentence here, and you could use this exact one if you want. This could be something you can just grab. However, obviously you're not going to be grabbing the part about the IT band. That doesn't make any sense. The resilience necessary to achieve things when faced with hardships can be seen throughout U.S. history as well. Something like that. You don't have to use my wording. Now I want to talk about the three groups. I want to make sure I introduce my three groups, right? So the three groups we looked at were the Pueblo natives, the colonists during the American Revolution, and our African-American group when they resisted against slavery. So those are our three groups. The resilience necessary to achieve things when faced with hardships can be seen throughout U.S. history as well. This is the Pueblo natives. We'll just jump right into it. The Pueblo natives, the American colonists, and African-American slaves all struggled to gain, I don't want to say to gain, because they all didn't gain their freedom. The Pueblo natives, the American colonists, and the African-American slaves all struggled as they worked, all struggled as they, yeah, we'll just say worked. I don't like it too much, so you might want to change it, as they worked towards their ideas of freedom from oppression. All right. So there we go. So what I've done here is I have my anecdote, my 2 or 3 sentence, this one's a 3-sentence anecdote. I have a sentence that connects it to what the paper is about to be about. And then this next sentence lets me know, hey, this is what is actually going to show up. So when I go into body paragraph 1, I'm going to be looking for that part. American colonists is going to be paragraph 2, African-American slaves, paragraph 3. And they're all struggling. All struggle as they work towards their ideas of freedom from oppression. Okay? That's all I want. That's all you need to do for today. Okay? Something like that. Write an introductory paragraph, put it in there, and then have your green paragraphs written in here. All right? Make sure, again, if you haven't done these, that you need to work on these. So don't just write this and be like, oh, I'm done. You need to have those body paragraphs because we're putting it all together. It's going to be due on Thursday or Friday when I see you. All right. And then along with that, if you've done very little work for these paragraphs, spend some time improving those paragraphs. It's on you. All right. I've given you a lot of examples. The one that I didn't work with you on was our first one. Probably should have done it opposite way, where I worked with you on the other 2 and then had you do the last one on your own, but you know, whatever. So that's what you should be doing today. So for today, you should have this blue section completed and then all 3 of these green sections completed. Then we will do a conclusion paragraph on Thursday, Friday, put it all together, and you'll submit it through Schoology. All right. I will see all of you next class, Thursday, Friday. Okay. Bye, everybody.